Hi, it's Amanda here from Suddenly Autistic, and I'm making this video about being burnt out, which I am right now. I've just recorded a video which I was theoretically happy with, but then I listened back and the sound quality was terrible. I'm having a real issue with sound quality in the videos, and being burnt out, that just feels like an almost impossible thing. I mean, I want to capture these moments as authentically as possible when something is happening on my journey that I feel like could lead to some insights for both myself and maybe other people, or is worth documenting. But the last couple of videos I've made, the sound quality has been so bad. I did some cleaning the other day, and I've misplaced, don't know where the hell it is, the whole kit with all my different doodles in it, the different whatever headphones and stuff in it. So it's really, anyway, it doesn't matter. So anyway, I'm making this again, and I'm going to try and just get on with it without headset in, because the sound on the headset was terrible, and I've lost all my other things. I don't know what I've done with the box of stuff that I've got. So anyway, this is me. So burnout, autistic burnout. So if you watch my videos, if you've watched them before, you'll know that I became autistic. I realised I was given the diagnosis of autism a couple of years ago now, and that was really empowering. Throughout my life, I've had times when I have recognised myself as being very low functioning, or having a dip in my functionality, and feeling burnt out. And I used to put that down to a thing called adrenal fatigue. I felt like adrenal fatigue sort of fit me. I read all about that and wondered what that was caused by. Now I know that and I'm not saying that my adrenal glands are not fatigued. I mean, who knows really? But now, knowing that I'm autistic, I'm recognizing more that these periods of time when I feel like my legs have gone to lead, or I'm trying to push my way through the custard of life, like it's just not easy to move and do stuff, that this is actually burnout, and that this is quite an unfortunate reality for a lot of people on the spectrum, that we do become burnt out quite often and quite badly, and that can then lead to us having trouble with our lives, really, as you would expect when you stop being able to function and don't know when you're going to be able to function again. So this video is about burnout. One of the things that happens to me when I'm burning out is that I find it hard to express myself verbally, which is great making a video when you're struggling with your words. Again, I think that seems to be something that the autism community experiences, and I certainly do. So I am almost hyperverbal usually. I notice, like, even now, that it's a struggle for me I can get on a flow and communicate and be fine, but then there's other times when I'm just like, I lose the words, I can't remember what I'm saying. It's not even do I remember or don't I remember, it's just there's like gaps in the route. So I might be getting the point across but missing bits in the middle, and that's kind of how I'm writing now too. So this doesn't just translate to how I talk, it's also how I'm writing when I'm having to write things for work or whatnot. So burnout, this is it. I'm going to just review this little bit of the introduction and just make sure that you can hear me, and if the sound quality is good, I'll bang out the rest of this video before I need to go back to bed. 2 days ago, I went to see my psychiatrist under my normal schedule of appointments. Because I'm on medication for my ADHD, I have a psychiatrist. I chose somebody that I thought would be quite progressive and that I could work with and talk to. So they're based out of a private hospital towards the city. And yeah, really, really happy with them. When I went this week, they sensed that I was not really functioning. It's not hard to sense, and suggested that maybe I should be admitted. And I did it it's weird how things happen. When I did this first take and then the sound quality was crazily bad, I looked at the camera when I said admitted, and I've done exactly the same now. And I think that's because that's exactly what I did, and that's what I said in the first edit, that's exactly what I did when the guy said, oh, I think we should admit you. I didn't get admitted, that's why I'm here now, but that's because I couldn't afford it, because it's a private hospital and I don't have health insurance. It was the psychiatrist at the time was looking to give me a handbrake so that I didn't slide any further into dysfunctionality, and that I could perhaps recover my functionality faster than I otherwise would, rather than it being a crisis. Had it been a crisis, then our mental health services, our national health system, if you like, Medicare, that it's called here in Australia, would have picked up, and I would have got the care that I would have needed in that situation. So I was free to go. It was a suggestion, and it was a very timely and useful suggestion. The reason I looked at the camera in the first edit and then when I said that is because it was the first time actually in my life that when I've been in such a distress, and I've been in this level of sort of, dysfunctionality quite a few times now, quite a lot actually, it was the first time that I actually felt validated and supported, and that even though I couldn't take up the scenario that was offered, and that was a bit of a bummer, to be honest, being validated in that way by a mental health professional, and certainly not being gaslit that, oh, everyone feels like that when you've just done this and blah, blah, blah. But it's kind of normal. It's just normal. You have to just surrender. Not having to go through that moment, not having that as the response was invaluable, really invaluable. I didn't realize it during the visit, how validating and how shifting that would be, but I have recognized it afterwards. And now I feel so grateful that I have the psychiatrist that I have, and that he was able to recognize the level of distress in me, because while I class myself as relatively intelligent and in touch with life and quite researched and whatever, I still have not until this week recognized the myself as somebody who has from time to time been in need of mental health hospitalization. And I say that not because I feel like it's something I didn't want to accept, more that my understanding of what it was or what it is to be hospitalized with mental health issues has not been accurate, and I didn't realize that until now. I feel like anyone in a facility for their mental health that's great. That's a great step, and that's really helpful, and I'm sure that's a benefit to them. But I hadn't recognized myself as needing that, because I was gaslighting myself actually, and not comprehending, or able to assess myself as going, oh my gosh, like actually I am in need and this would be a good thing. So I both recognized what my psychiatrist was saying as being something that did apply to me. I understood what he was saying. I thought it would be a good idea. And I've resolved to, once I get myself into a more secure situation and get past this hump that I'm in now, that I can get myself some health insurance and invest in that, so that when inevitably this sort of situation comes up again, and I say when rather than if, because I do think being somebody who's neurodivergent, who's in a complex family system with other people who have different needs, just the ebb and flow of life, and life being as it is, and my personality being as it is, and the family being as it is, that it is somewhat inevitable that there will be crunches in the future that might require me to seek extra help. But there might also not be, and that's clearly okay. But having that security there would be a good measure of self-care. So what's happened to me? Why am I in burnout? Well, the reason, in a nutshell, without, I can tell you the nitty gritty details, but in a nutshell, why I am in burnout is because I cannot process emotionally and sensorily everything that's coming in at this point in time. So, and when I say I can't process it in sufficient time, so I have a backlog. I have a backlog of processing to do as a person in this world. So what kind of things am I talking about to make it easier? Well, I start off with the externalities. So the weather is too weathery. Clothes are too itchy, they're too tight, they're too loose, they're too movable, they're too this, like everything feels wrong. I don't feel happy in my tummy, which is a very immature way of saying it. I don't feel quite right, you know, I don't know whether I'm hungry anymore or not hungry, and when I'm like eat something it doesn't really feel right, and then I don't eat anything, and I'm tending towards not really eating well because I've lost touch with hunger. Sleep, a little bit erratic. I'm really tired, and then I can go into a deep sleep very quickly, sometimes in the middle of the day, but then I'm struggling to keep a good sleep routine. So I'm having either a lot or not enough. I'm getting up in the middle of the night full of energy, or just can't settle, or I'm just almost comatose. So it's erratic. My sleep is erratic. It's not good quality. Sensorily feeling not quite good, feeling heavy and stiff and clenched and floppy at the same time in my body, like really not having good control of my you know, my fine motor skills and all the rest of it. And then in my head, I'm feeling a bit foggy, a bit confused, a bit slow, a bit cluttered up there, and then also a bit floaty, like and this is where the tummy issues comes in, and the clothes. It's like I'm dissociating or detaching from myself quite more than normal, because there's too much sensory input coming in, there's too much. So all of these things this is what it feels like. I have a headache on and off. I'm feeling very hot when the weather's hot, and then I'm getting very cold. So my temperature, my thermostat is not working very well in my body. And yeah, not recognizing the signs of all the basic sort of functionality that keeps us pretty safe. So I'm losing touch with my physicality, basically. So that's how burnout is manifesting as me. In terms of how it is projected out to others, I'm struggling with, like I said, forming cohesive thoughts and planning. So executive processing's bad. I'm losing my words. So sometimes I can be on a flow, and other times I don't know what I'm saying. I've got a dry mouth a bit more than normal. So why did this happen? What's going on? In a nutshell, again, as a summary, what has caused me to get into this state has been a lot of change happening very quickly. So everything all together, all at once, whatever that film is again, it keeps coming into my brain and I never remember the title. But life has changed for us. In a previous video, I mentioned that over the last 3 years, we've been caring for my father-in-law, and he passed away. And while the sadness and that side of grief is not too bad, we're just, you know, dealing with that pretty well. When I say we, I mean my husband and I, and just in general, going through the motions and processes. But what I'm struggling with, and what this video is really about, is how that's changed our lives. That fundamental shift in reality for this, and it's changed how I feel about my home, how the attachment to my home, how I envisage how I think about, I can't even say. It's just changed everything. So Grandad Brian, father-in-law, has passed away. We've got the granny flat there that we looked into possibly getting rented out for some extra income come next year, but we realised that that wasn't something that we'd really like to do. It's not something that we think that we could cope with, and in terms of just the privacy and, you know, sharing space, quite close space with other people. So we're going through all of that and have decided, you know what, it might not be a bad idea to move house. Now, so then when you take a step back and go, oh, okay, so you're autistic, you've just lost your father-in-law who's lived with you all that time, you've been caring them for this long, and, you know, that's quite a big thing. And now you've decided to just go, oh, let's just move house as well, just to complete the chaos. To think like that and to judge like that is to be very superficial in the way of thinking. And that's definitely, I was so glad that my psychiatrist didn't just stick there. Yes, when you change things like that, it's natural for anyone and everyone to feel a level of disconnect, discombobulation, not sure where they are in the world and all of that. That is a given. But to become mentally ill is not inevitable. humans, we, society, people, we all go through these things all the time, and we have our good days and our bad days. And even with grief and change, grief is a period of change, and it often does come with a change of physical circumstances. It's not unusual for people to move house or to change jobs or to take some time out or change their routine when somebody who's very close to them dies. As humans, we're actually equipped to deal with that. And while, yes, we do have good days and bad days and may feel towards a depression and might want antidepressants to help us cope with those low feelings and that sadness and loss, in general, there's a level of continuity. Life goes on, you put one foot in front of the other and keep going. That's not the experience that I'm having. I only have myself and my husband to compare and contrast, and that isn't a scientific study, and I'm well aware of that. But when we do discuss these kind of things, and I reflect on what's going on for me, and he reflects on what's going on for him, he, to my mind, feels very normative. His experiences feel very normative. It's normal to feel a bit sad and a bit empty, to have some times when you're a bit teary, to be a little extra clumsy, to be struggling a bit with sleep from time to time. In fact, a lot of the time maybe, to not maybe make great food choices, you know, to prefer comfort food to, you know, what might be healthy, to skip a little bit of exercise maybe, or even to exercise a bit too much because, you know, you're trying to feel something and kickstart your body and get into a new zone. That I would say is recognised in the grieving process. What happens to me is that I lose my life skills. I stop being able to form sentences so much and communicate in words. It comes and goes. I am extremely drained, like extremely drained. So clumsiness to an extra level, forgetfulness, dissociation. Like I said, I can't find my microphones at the moment because I did a cleaning job when I was processing some feelings and whatnot, and I've put them away and I don't know where I've put them. I can't find them. That's not unusual for me. It's unusual for my husband. He might do that kind of thing and know where everything is, but because I'm doing it in a dissociated state, I can lose things forever. I might throw away all the things I want to keep and keep all the things I want to throw away because I'm just, you know, not, my executive processing's gone. It would be somewhat inevitable to be a little bit burnt out for someone like me with autism who has that different sensory processing difficulties, slightly more hypo and hyper sensitive in terms of my body and my sensory experience. All of that going on. A change like this is fundamental, and any change is hard. It's not about how much we like it or don't like it from my perspective, or how much we choose it or it comes at us from my perspective. It's the adjustment, it's the process. I feel like a literal train on a track, and you know, and as soon as it's like we've got to wait for a new track to be built. Where's it going? What's the goal? What's the purpose? I can't just shift the, you know, the points and go off in this different direction. It's got to be what's the, you know, there's a big picture stuff and there's small details, and I can't change. I'm on this track. Burnout. Burnout is not just a lot of things to think about, it's the whole body not responding to cues or not recognizing the cues, and then those, it's like if you have somebody, say for example there's birds that come in the garden and they've got their young, and the young chirp around like asking to be fed. Now they can get louder if their parents don't come, you know, that kind of thing. So it's like my whole body, all these different things, my thermostat, my guts, my digestion, my hunger, my thirst is another one, my sleep, I'm not recognizing. Usually I'd recognize them a bit later than the norm, or a bit different to the norm, maybe even earlier in some cases, so I'd respond differently to that in the norm anyway. But when we add this level of burnout, it's blown out. Burnout is blowout. So the signals are really out of whack. I have to get back to myself and put myself back together before I can even start processing the objective reality. And I think that's really what I'd say about burnout. That's pretty much it. So it's like being autistic. The difference between being autistic and being neurotypical in a situation of high stress. So I recognise that my husband and I in general, just objective reality. This is a hard time of life. There's a lot changing. It's natural that we're not going to be performing at our best, or we're going to be extra tired. For me, it's pushed me into mental illness, and mental illness manifests as my brain isn't working, my brain stops working, or works really in a way that's not helpful. It's not helpful, and it's hard for me to keep myself safe and well. So mentally ill is the brain functioning, not being able to look after the rest of the body. And the rest of the body already being a little bit more vulnerable than normal, outside of the norms, and not really in touch with other people. So I can't just watch other people and go, oh yeah, it's that time, I should do that. It doesn't work like that for me. So I have a higher vulnerability to these sort of triggers in life. And when things do come, then it can really discombobulate me. Now, in terms of the actual, what we can and can't choose. So say, for example, my husband and I were like, okay, you're burnt out, let's just rest then, we won't do anything. That isn't an option for me either, because a lot of my distress and a lot of my burnout, it comes from the my desire to find patterns and meaning and resolution in situations. So that's one of the reasons for making these videos, because they do help me resolve some of the feelings and some of the chaos that goes on inside of me, because it does force me to think about, well, what am I thinking, what am I feeling, what am I sensing, what are the problems, where's it coming from? So that's why I make the videos. Really, it helps me. I have throughout my life, especially when I didn't know I was autistic, it was easy for people, I feel, to, if I start going, oh, well, this is going on and that's going on, the usual response of friends, doctors, whoever was, well, it's understandable that you're feeling so tired and whatever, all you need is a rest. That is not helpful, because it's true and it's not true. The part that is true is that we need a rest. The part that is not true is the assumption that it's the lot of stuff, that it's the lot of change, all the different change, all the different externalities or objective realities that are going on. It's not the objective reality that causes a problem per se. Yes, it has a hit because it changes your routine, but for me, it's the subjective. It's how that feels and how people relate and how we build meaning around that. So that's what I take time to process. It's like, this has happened, we want to do that. So for example, it's not helpful at the moment, or it wouldn't be helpful for people to say to me, well, your father-in-law's just died, probably don't think about selling the house right now, give it a year or two, because you're really stressed and that's enough on its own. That's not helpful, because to me, the house, how I feel about the house, is my core security, and it's built into the process of grieving and loss and resolution and processing of my father-in-law's death. The granny flat was built by him. We bought the house with him in mind. It's been a family house with 2 children, a granddad and 2 adults for the whole of our relationship with his life. And that relationship has now changed, because we neither have the children living here, nor do we have granddad. So now it's just us 2. And the house is feeling different, because it is different. It's still objectively the same house, but our relationship to it has changed. Autism is about relationships, and the relationships should not be swept under the rug as being secondary to the big thing. They are the big thing. So it doesn't matter what the resolution is, whether we say, right, let's stay here, let's sell up, let's do this, let's do that. That is a set of unemotional, logical processes that we can either choose to do or not. And then we can have some control over when we do it and how we do it, depending on what resources we've got. That is not what causes me to have a burnout, whether we move or not, whether we look now or later. What would cause me, or what is causing me the more burnout, is feeling trapped and stuck. Feeling stuck is about knowing there's something wrong with our current situation, but not knowing what it is. That's the feeling of being stuck. So you just, oh, I'm stuck here, but it's, and then it comes in with confusion, and that can then send me into sensory overwhelm, because I start talking about this with people and they'll go, well, it's because of the, and I'll be like, that's not right, it doesn't feel right. Feeling trapped is what would come next. So recognizing what the problem is, or some of the potential problems that exist, but not being able to access a solution or implement a solution. So what's been happening and what's led me to burnout is being in a situation where we've had an emotional situation happen that's logical and understandable, and that's been on a trajectory, and that's been okay. That's been absolutely okay. It's been hard work, it's been tiring, but it's been okay because it makes sense. The natural grieving has made sense. What it left with a feeling of stuckness and confusion, because things were still not, like, things have been feeling a little bit off. Our relationship with the home has been feeling a little bit, that process of thinking helps me to get unstuck, but it takes time and energy, but it's not demotivating, and it doesn't make me burnt out to do that. It might make me stay up a bit later, maybe get a bit hyper-excited and then get a bit tired, but burnout does not happen because of that. Burnout happens because of the trapped, the feeling trapped, and that is a subjective thing, and then that comes in and got to do a lot of values work and a lot of deep processing, so need the deep processing. So recognizing, for me, recognizing in life where I feel trapped, and by trapped I'm meaning, yes, we've got a plan now, we know what we want to do, but we can't do it all right now, so there's a gap of time, there's a gap of discomfort, and it might be this long, it might be that long, it might look like this, it might look like that, but we're trapped. And by trapped I mean we can't enact, we can't keep moving forward on this and resolve it and get to the destination at this time. There's a level of there's things that have to happen, so we're actually got to sit in our discomfort for a little bit longer while this happens, that happens, and whatever. And initially that feels like being trapped to me. It feels like a demand. There's a demand, you've got to stay there. It feels like a lack of control on one level. It feels invalidating, it feels abusive, and that can then traumatize, go into my trauma triggers. That's what contributes to me getting burnt out, that feeling of trappedness. And then that's what's that's what's tickling or activating my core values, and then I'm evaluating my situation against my core values and going, oh, friction, what's going on? And that's when I can start feeling bad about myself. So that's the situation. The last thing I want to talk about is what am I doing about it, in terms of what can I do, what can't I do in terms of this burnout. So I can't go to hospital at the moment because I'm not bad enough to be a free patient, and I'm not rich enough to be going into the facility where my psychiatrist works. I have done something about that in terms of looking into and getting prepared to get the insurance I need once we are in a better financial position and living a life that's more within my current capacity. So I feel like I've learned from that. That's been a positive. That's something that's just sitting there and ready to enact. I don't feel any stress. I don't feel trapped at the moment. I feel accepting of that. I didn't know what I didn't know. Now I know. Now I understand. Now I can put that in my spreadsheet plan, which is what I've done. I feel vulnerable because of this situation, and it's true, it's a reality, it's an actual objective reality that I'm now more vulnerable because my mental health is not so good, because I can't do all the things I need to do. But again, I can make peace with that, and I can make a plan for that, and I can have there's some choices I can make to avoid that becoming catastrophic. It's just that when you're burnt out, doing anything is hard work. So there's that. The number one thing that I've learnt in my life about burnout is that it doesn't feel any better if you beat yourself up. Going to the psychiatrist, having a professional recognise that I am in a state of distress and that I do need help was very validating, and it was the first time, I think I've said this before, where I actually felt like my mental health had been validated, and that's really, really priceless, regardless to anything else. So it doesn't change anything objective about my life, my objective reality, but it changes my subjective understanding and relationship with myself in this moment. I can have more compassion to myself. So one of the main things that I'm doing right now is really, really noticing and putting brakes on anything negative in terms of self-talk. when I get in these situations and I feel stuck, the timer goes on in my head. It's like, you're taking too long to do this. You should have done that. You could have done that. Why are you doing that when you actually need to do this? This is more important. What do you... That kind of time management it kicks in and it destroys me, because it ends with me feeling like I'm making all the wrong choices in all the wrong order, that everything's taking too long, and that I'm not really, what's the point? And it kind of spirals. Being aware of that, those negative self-talks and those negative patterns, is really important, and just saying, no, that is not true, that is not helpful, that is about all I'm doing. So I feel like even making this video has made the situation a little bit better for me, because I feel like I'm starting to process it a bit more now, and that makes everything feel a bit lighter and a bit less tense. Like I said, it doesn't change the objective reality that, yeah, there are some things that need addressing, and there are some things that are going out of that if I don't get on top of will come back to bite me and make my life harder for longer. And I don't want that. There are some things that I just have to let go of trying to manage, because I can't manage them at the moment, and I can only, and fighting that and resisting that and getting mad with myself about that is not going to help. It'll only hinder it. And like I said, to just finalise, I think that the invalidation and the gaslighting from the general population, when people like myself talk about how we're feeling and whatever, it's not intentional. I don't think anyone intends to make you feel like, oh, well, it's normal. Yes, they're trying to make you feel better. So if I go out and say, look, I'm really having a bad time, I'm really dysregulated, blah, 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 I can guarantee that, 5 out of 6 people that I talk to would say, well, you have just lost your father-in-law, and you did just lose your mother-in-law. All of that is true. But like I said, it's my relationship to change. And it's not just how I feel about it, it's how I respond to it somatically. And how I respond to it somatically is very inherent to my autism. It's an autistic response. So it's not normative. So it's understandable that I have become burnt out, given all of the ways in which my relationship to my family relationship, so my human relationships, see the birds. So every relationship has changed. My relationship with work has changed. My relationship with my father-in-law has changed because he's passed away now. There's still a relationship, but he's just not alive anymore. My relationship with my family has changed. With my husband has changed because now he's not got any parents. So he's changed and I've changed. All of these things are changing. My relationship with the house has changed. My relationship with myself has changed. All because I've learned some things. All of these things have changed. Thankfully, I can say that a lot of that change has been, in fact, I can't think of any of that change that's been negative. It's been hugely positive and a great growth experience for me and for, I think, my whole family. And it will resolve in the positive, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty hopeful and optimistic about that. But it's the relationship. It's building these relationships. Autism is about relationships. Our relationship with ourselves is difficult because we don't necessarily, when I say difficult, I don't mean it's hard and awful. I just mean it's really, really difficult. It's a challenge because our bodies are not talking to us with the intensity that everyone else's are. So we don't have access to as many cues and patterns. It's like we've got to learn about ourselves, and then it's so changeable and so difficult to get back on track. And then you can wonder, well, what's me and what's not? It goes on. So being autistic is having problems with relationships. When things change, it means that everything, all the relationships are changing potentially, or relationships are changing. So it's less about the objective reality you see, what is being chosen in terms of actions by the individual, or what's not being chosen, what's being avoided maybe. It's about the relationship to it. It's about how that makes them feel about themselves, what's within their control, what they can and can't perceive and feel. And I was really grateful that my psychiatrist recognised that I was struggling. And like I said, that has been, for now, that's probably enough to get me sort of on the right track to recovery this time. But I'm definitely heeding the warning. I definitely understand the mental health system a little bit better now than I did before. I see that there is a place for me in the hospital unit when I am like this, and I feel like it would be a good place for me to be if I could afford it, because I do need that help. But at the moment, I'm going to just take the one more step in the right direction, and I wouldn't say run with it. I was going to say run with it, but I can't run with it. I'm just going to shuffle with it. That's that.